Hey folks, how you doing? Ken here. Just to give you a quick update on thoughts. First of all, Nitrite. It is improving, there's no doubt. I'm down with the Hannah kit at around 0.25. It did drop down to 0.2 and I've upped the feeding a bit, so it's increased tiny bit up to 0.25. So I'm happy enough with that. I've also, as I said, increased feeding a tiny bit. I was feeding about 30 grams. I'm probably up around 40 or 50 grams. I'd say half of what I should be feeding given the fish volume I have. But it's definitely improving, and I'm happy that the Hannah is accurate and is giving me proper readings. I'm checking it every couple of days, so I'm just about to prepare for a bottom drain flush, my usual every couple of weeks. Have been thinking about adding more filtration, so what I'm going to do is the rotary shower I'm going to install in this corner. I was looking at the height of it, and actually it does, so the bottom of the rotary shower, in order to trickle back into the system, it has to be above the water height. So my water height is here, so the bottom of the rotary shower has to be above that to stop the water obviously backing up into the shower. It says to keep it above. So I was even looking at this here, and the height from top to bottom, they're not actually that big. They're 1225 millimeters, so I could sit it on that. The only problem is it would be quite tight to the roof of the shed, and for maintenance and cleaning now, it's going to be after the drums, so the amount of solids getting into it should be very little. So what I'll do is, I think, as I said before, I'm probably going to cut here. Now this is a shed, so as you can see under there, it's a fairly rough and ready shelf. So what I think I could do is maybe about here is just take off this and cut it, and then put a leg in here again. It's a shed. I was thinking of maybe doing something, I'm cutting something at an angle against the wall, but although it is buckled there, there's a reasonable amount of weight on it, and there's not much. It probably could have done with a leg. Oh, this here for a rub, excuse me for a minute. It probably could have done with a leg or some support there. But anyway, what I'll do is I'll cut it short, take out this piece, put a couple of legs in there and a bit of strengthening, and then build a custom property around this height there of a wooden stand. I've a fair bit of wood outside left over from the covers I did for the pond at the end of the season last year, so I shall do that and probably add that before the end of the season when the covers are going back on. I just need to figure out how I'm going to get one to Dublin. There's a fair amount of weight in them, and that's mostly the media. It comes with about 100 litres of crystal biomedia, so I'll have to move a bit of stuff out. I need to do a bit of tidying and move stuff over to the garage. At boxes there, I'll move over. The two fish tanks I don't currently use, I'll move over, and that means I'll have a little bit less shelf space. Thinking as well of moving the big blue. I'll probably shorten the contraption, it's too long anyway here. That's my water coming in. I'll probably shorten it. I could even swing it around here and run a hose around from it and sit the big blue in here, because now my trickle in, as you know, is going into this side and the outlet of the filter. So just a few thoughts, as I confirmed before, so this outlet here, which is after the drum but before the bio, I'm going to use that to feed into the trickle tower. That's where my UV was before. I now have the UV. I'll just turn it off and show you. I now have my UV, as I've shown you before. It's sitting in there, which works well. The dirty sides, so you can see possibly down there you probably thought better that there is under the drum. And my media, which I am convinced since I moved the trickle in, has got a lot browner. So I think we're moving a very low constant amount of chlorine that I was probably getting, A, before I added my big blue, and B, when the media and the big blue is on its way out, there's some chlorine gets in there. Not an issue if you're adding it directly into the pond, but when I had it flowing into the relatively small amount of water in my combi form, I think it was doing harm to the media and stopping it maturing. So that's it. What I wanted to show you as well, and I'll come back when I'm doing my flush. So I had to look at the plans, the photographs I took when I was doing the build, because I wasn't too sure. I know the middle one here input is my skimmer. I wasn't too sure which bottom drain was which, but I've confirmed that the one nearest is the spin drifter, which is the rear, and the one furthest is the normal bottom drain at the front of the pond. The normal bottom drain, I feel it's a bit hesitant in the water coming through. Not that it's not flowing, but I'm caught of getting a glug effect, not air, as though it's blocked. And I'm only noticing the last few weeks there is some sort of blockage there. I'll show you when I'm actually doing it. But they're the plans, so going well, making progress on the nitrite. And another thing I noticed when I got my NT Labs kit, I checked my nitrate, the NO3. Now, my previous API pond test kits didn't have nitrate, and I presume because I have a trickle in, and I'll show you again, which is in or about 4, that's 0.4. I really need to tidy up in here, that yoke, the basin, whatever you call them, for the measuring the koi keeps coming down. So it's around 0.4 of a litre, 0.45 of a litre a minute, which multiplies up to about 4,000 litres a week, which is a 20% water change on the pond, and I usually have that during the winter. I would have just assumed, given that, along with the sort of 1,000 litres or so top up I do when I do my bottom drain flushes every month, that my nitrates were pretty low. I was surprised when I tested them that they were 40, which nitrates aren't dangerous, but 40 is high, and while it probably doesn't harm the fish, it's not great, and it's not great for algae. So what I did was I did a couple of big water changes, got my sodium thiosulfate there, mixed a bit in a watering can, poured it in the back of the pond, and just left the hose running into it for about 5 hours, and I reckon that's about 2,500 litres. Did that 3 or 4 times and brought it down to about 10. So I don't know whether it's just the smaller water changes over the winter or whatever, but the nitrates just crept up, and that surprised me. And I do notice as well, there's a combination of me covering the back of the pond. We'll just take a walk out. But definitely I've been covering, there's Odie there. Fish are grand. I mean, as I said before, all through this nitrite problem, which was up at 1.5 at one stage, the fish have been grand, eating, acting normally, doing all the rest. Got a bit of algae there, and we can clean up, so it's amazing the tiny bit of algae that disrupts the water flow and that anyway. And my lilies are coming on nicely. And there's Tarzan. Tarzan has had fairly major surgery, the poor dog. Got very sick a couple of weeks ago with a lump on his throat, and it turned out to be a bacterial infection, and the vet said, nothing to worry about, he's a young dog, he'll get over it, and gave him some antibiotics. Sorry, this is a long story, but I know some of you have dogs and like dogs. And we went with the antibiotics. The lump, about the size of a mandarin orange, reduced but didn't go. And then as soon as the antibiotic stopped, it got bigger again. Went down to the vet, said, mustn't have been a strong enough antibiotic, and gave him another one. But then he got, over the period of a few days, he got much worse, and the swelling was unbelievable. Had to rush him to a veterinary hospital, and he got surgery on the same day to clean out the wound. It was just a bad infection. They've no idea of the cause, but thankfully we got him back last night and he's a lot better, and we're a lot poorer. I won't tell you how much it cost, but he's not insured and it was a lot of money, but anyway, he's better and we're happier. Anyway, going back to the pond, you can see a little bit of blankish weed, nowhere near as bad as it was, a little bit on the media baskets there again. I'm going to back that in a minute. Now, I don't know whether it's just my lilies are out competing. If definitely I stick that tarp on at night. I didn't do it last night. But I stick that on at night and leave it until sort of, lunchtime to reduce the daylight this time of year, and that's helping as well. But why I get blanket weed there and I don't get it in the rest of the ponds, I don't know. So that's it. So I'm going to do that bottom drain flush, and I'll show you what I mean with that. Compare the two bottom drains when I'm flushing them and let you see the water. If anyone has any ideas, I've tried running the front one on its own to see if it clears something out, and it doesn't. Now, as I say, the water is running through it. You wouldn't be concerned about the amount of water. It's just that if it is a blockage, it's just getting gradually worse. That's more the concern. But anyway, I'm going to get cracking on that, and I'll talk to you in a few minutes. Take it easy. Cheers. Right, back again. I've done my usual. I've shown you this before. I have my vac connected up. I vac out, close my drains and the skimmer, shut off the pumps, and I drain down the dirty side. There's still a bit of debris there, and you can see my UV hopefully in there. It generally floats up a bit. You might notice that it's a large quartz, although I don't know if you can see it too well there, probably from up here. It's an 80 watt quartz, and I had an 80 watt bulb where I just replaced it with a 40. I don't need an 80. I bought the 80 because the price differential between the 80 and the 40 was minimal, and but now with the price of electricity I don't need an 80, so I put a 40 in it. I could shorten the quartz, but there's no real need. I have the room for it there. If I did have a shorter quartz, I could mount the UV in that bracket that's there for it, but unfortunately I found, although I can get the UV down there, it doesn't secure, and the actual element that the bulb is shadowed out by the bracket, so I do need a shorter, so that's why I have it leaning across like that. I was slightly worried that I might damage it, but it's been fine so far. It isn't my third time to do it in that, where the position where it is has been fine. So let me just show you, if I can show you first of all as a comparison. You see the one on the right, when I open it, the water coming through, and you can see how dirty the water is potentially. I find when I do this, and it's, as I say, some of you will probably say, listen, this isn't ideal, there's not enough space there, but this is the way I've designed it. I can amend the pipework outside if I want to at some stage and build in a proper flush direct to drain, but at the moment I say this has worked quite well. As I do have concerns with the drain on the other side, but just have a look at this one for a minute. You can see the water is quite dirty there. It's not clear now. So, to be honest, let me have a look. I've seen it a lot worse, to be honest. That's not too bad. I just do that about 3 times, so you can see that one. It was fairly instantaneous. The water flowed through uninhibited. But let's. I'll come back to you in a couple of minutes while I do the other side. To be honest, what I used to do first, actually, before the water level fell in the pond, you'd be surprised how quick it falls, is do the skimmer. Although the skimmer line, it's much shorter, and there's just usually very little in it, so not too pushed about that. So I usually just open that up, let it fill up, vac it out, do that 3 times. But the water, as I say there, that water, there's a bit of debris in it, but it's very, I've got at times completely green water and, you know, really thick crap in it. Now that might be due to the fact my nitrates are now a lot lower, I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to do this 3 times, and then I'll go over and I'll do the other one, and I'll come back and I'll just show you the comparison and see what people think. Cheers. Right, I've done that one 3 times. To be honest, I would say nearly that's the cleanest I've seen that drain in a long time. Usually the first flush there's a lot of green water and crap, and it's impossible to see the bottom of the filter. Now I do have a better torch on me now, but at the bottom, yeah. But that was quite clear, the first flush. The next 2 flushes were practically clear, and there was very little debris even on the first flush. So now what I'm going to do is, and I'll just keep you there and I'll come back up, is just have a look. You can just about see that, and it'll probably go a bit dark now when I bend down to open it up. You can see the far. You saw the other one, quick gush fills up quite quickly. Now I'll do this other one. If I can get it. And I don't know if you can see that, but the water comes through quickly enough, maybe a bit slower than the other ones, but there is that lugging. There's definitely more crap in that now. You can see that's what the other one was like normally. Now you can't see the bottom, but there is a lot more crap there. I'll just close it now. But anyway, that's it. So just this, you could see this glugging, although the water came through, and probably, you know what it's like when you're a pond owner. If you don't have something particularly to worry about, you'll come up with something. There is a fair bit of crap on that. I wonder if there's an argument for me, you know, maybe over a day or so, is closing the spin drifter and just leaving that one run and pull as much water and see if I can dislodge. I have a feeling there might be a build up in there. Either that or maybe the lid, although the lid shouldn't have moved. I mean, I only noticed this the last few weeks. I'm just wondering, is the gap between the lid and the bottom drain a bit too small, and that's causing it. You know, I haven't had any blanket weed in the main pond. I would have had some, probably went over from the back in the waterfall, but nothing of any significance that would have caused a block. So I'd say it's more a silt and waste build up. So I may just look at maybe, you know, keep the skill. I find if I open one bottom drain and run the pumps have to be fairly low, because the water isn't coming through quick enough on one bottom drain. If there was one piece of advice I got, and I had a mate come out here when I dug the hole, and I told him the plans, and at that time I had one bottom drain in the plan, and I bought one spin drifter, and he looked at it and said, for the price, he says, don't bother with another spin drifter, go with a standard drain at the front, because you don't really want a spin drifter at the window, and I know other people have, and that's personal preference. But for the price of the drain and the bit of pipe, and your filter can handle it, you'd be mad not to put in a second bottom drain. And that's a good piece of advice I got, because when I run one bottom drain, the pull through the filter is very bad, it's very poor, and it's, you know, I have to turn the pumps right down, otherwise it's, you know, constantly churning, and you know, the level in the drum drops. So what I think I might do, maybe overnight, I'll see how it goes, open the skimmer a crack and leave the spin drifter closed, and just see, can I lodge, as I say, I mean, there's not a huge amount in there. When you see it settled, there's a bit of debris, but definitely more than there was in the other one. Anyway, there you go, there's always something. But I might see if I can just run that through, or maybe with a bit more pressure in it, is just dislodge, because I have no way, the way mine is designed. And if you look back at one of my first videos, which is, I didn't do any videos of the actual pond build, but I did do a compilation of a lot of photographs that I had, and you will see the complexities of the pipe work at the back of the you know, there's straight runs from the two bottom drains into outside the pond, but there's a lot of turning and twisting to get them up and around and in the way they came into the shed here. So rodding a bottom drain for me, you know, I'd end up having to cut into a pipe and do it, you know, and get sort of to the point where I just have one. Now I know you'd probably say that, well, maybe you should have thought of that. Well, I suppose I haven't concreted over the pipes, they're still outside. If the worst comes to the worst, I can dig and amend, and you know, if I was going to do some rodding or had to, I would probably then have to do a proper flush into the drain then. But anyway, as I say, it is doable. It's not digging up concrete or anything like that. Right, I'm going to get on with this, and I'll talk to you. What I will show you is, once I've done this 3 times, just show you how much the pond drops. And I wouldn't say I think this whole filter probably holds about 700-800 litres of water, and of course I'm not completely emptying the filter and filling it up, so I'm probably putting in 300 or 400 litres of water, I'd say, in doing one of these flushes. But it does drop down the level of the pond fairly significantly. And then of course I take the vac outside and I do a vac at the bottom drains are great, 2 bottom drains even better, but still you get a bit of debris at the bottom of the pond in places, and I like to give it a vac. Right, I'm going to get cracking at this, talk to you in a sec. Okay, what I did just there, I tried one thing. I emptied the filter completely, which took about 10 minutes, and then I just opened that far bottom drain, still getting the glug effect. Now it did fill up the filter in a couple of minutes, so the actual water flow itself is still pretty good. It's just that sort of hesitation I'm getting that's concerning me. So what I might do, even overnight, is just run the pond with just that bottom drain to see if I can start eroding with a little bit of extra flow, whatever it is that's there. But anyway, so after doing 6 bottom drain flushes into the dirty side of it, and then emptying and filling up, just to show you out here, you can see how much the water level drops in the pond. It's fairly significant. It's a good 6 inches there nearly. So as I say, what I do is I'll give this a clean when I'm at it. You can see the part of the problem with my spillway is there, that it's not level. It's down on the left hand side, so I don't get that real nice even flow. But then what I didn't factor into my calculations, and I built that out for a piece of acrylic, was that the acrylic's never going to be completely flat. But anyway, it does the job. So what I do is, generally I'm going to give this a vac. I'll probably clean around the sides of the brush as well, the main pond, the vac, and then I can use this, which is about 2,000 litres, which will top that back up, and then I can turn off the waterfall and the pump to the back pond, but just have the pump to the 2 returns in the bottom pond running, so I get the main pond up and running while this is filling up. I'll probably drain it. I think even to fill this up now when I vac it, it's going to take the guts of this anyway. So I'll probably maybe leave the pump, the hose running for 5 hours. It doesn't do the lilies any good. The stems get a bit tangled because they obviously all droop down and all, but they come back fairly good. And it gives me a chance to vac out these baskets. As I say, if you look back at my previous videos, after 2 weeks since I looked at them, that's a hell of a lot better. And I wonder how much of it is the light, probably a lot, but I wonder how much the lesser nitrates is having on that as well. Another thing I've been doing as well, and I noticed coming up to my last bottom drain flush, was I got a total chlorine HANA test kit to test my Big Blue, and my chlorine was at about 0.03 parts per million, which, you know, okay, going now into the outlet of the filter and going straight out into the pond isn't a problem, but it's at the higher end. I checked with Andy, his second name escapes me at the minute, who sells all the water processing stuff and Big Blues and everything else, Andy Finch. And Andy was just put up a video, he was changing the media in his Big Blue, and I just said, Andy, at what point you decide you're going to do your media? And you can see that that's all filled from that gluggy drain on the far end, and it is very clear there now. So Andy said when it gets to 30 parts per billion or 0.03 consistently, that for him is when you change. Now I was getting that, and I said, Andy, I changed my media a couple of weeks ago. So he was saying, listen, give it a shake, give it a back flush. So what I do is, on my trolley out here, because I don't have to lift it, take it out to the tap out here. The hose on the far side that I fill the pond from is on a pump, so there's more pressure, so I back flush it. And by the way, I have a couple of these I didn't have the last time, just these sediment filters that go in here. I'll change one of those. Not that I had one in for a guts of 8 months before, and it was a slight brown colour. There was nothing really in it, but anyway. So I bring this out, I put the inlet in there and flush it out the other way, and that agitates the media inside, because what happens is the water finds a track through the media and is only coming into contact with a small amount of the carbon and not fully dechlorinating the water. So to give it a shake and agitate it every couple of weeks, I'm going to start doing that as well. It's not a big deal, just to keep it optimized. Now, before I changed the media the last time, I did all that, and now the media was in about 5 or 6 months. It made no difference whatsoever, but with new media it showed. So when I did that the last time, tested the water again the next morning, it was 0 again, so that was perfect. And I tested it a couple of days ago, and it was 6 parts per billion, which is not even 0.01. I think that's 0.006 parts per million, which is nothing. It's within, I think, the margin of error on the HANA reader is 5 parts per billion or something, so that was perfect. So what I'll do is now I'm going to go out and do a vac, and I'll do my big blue agitation, and I'll leave it at that, and I'll keep you informed on the nitrite. But I think I finally have it under control. I don't want to bring it down much more. I want to have a level of nitrite there that the filter can mature on. So I'll just keep my trickle in and my trickle out, and I'll do a bit of a water change now because I have to fill up the back after I top up the front anyway. And that's more or less it. And I gave the filter a bit of a clean. I didn't do the waste gully, but I did the rest with my duster, and I'll leave it at that. As I say, I do this every 2 weeks, and get the filter up and running fairly quickly again. But in terms of the drum, this is all I do every 2 weeks. I do nothing else. And I'd say if I didn't do, judging by the 2 drains today, if I'd left it for another 2 weeks, it probably would have been all right, bar the one that's glugging. I've got a lot more crap out of those, more algae than food waste. It's sort of greeny, browny, powdery sort of waste. It's not very solid. But anyway, it's nice to do it and make sure the system is as clear as possible. Otherwise you just get builds up of nitrates. So if I notice anything major from running on that bottom drain practically on its own, if anything comes out, if I get a clearance, I'll stick up a little video and let you know. As I say, I'll probably open the skimmer a crack. My skimmer works fantastic, by the way. And I've always wondered if I should shut down that gate valve a bit. No, it should be more than a bit, I think, to get any sort of control over it. I wonder if it's just a little bit too strong and it's slowing the bottom drains a bit. I don't know. Anyway, other stuff to worry about. If I don't have something to worry about, I'll find something. Listen, I'll leave it at that, and I'll talk to you again. Cheers.